Take just a moment once you become seated to release and relax the legs down. If you find that's difficult to do, have more height under the buttocks so that you can catch that sense of letting go. Descend the flesh of the buttocks so the low back is long. Abdomen falling back. Then roll the shoulders out and bring the palms together. And close the eyes. Study the palms touching one another evenly, completely, as you surrender through the shoulders. Smooth, steady breath into the side body. And then join me for the sound of Om. And then release the head down. Release the hands with the palms up. And bring the head up with closed eyes, and then gently, softly open the eyes. And you can come off of any blankets you're sitting on if you wish. We're going to come into just a forward bend in Swastikasana. And then lift up and change the crossing of the legs. Again, come forward. And come on back up. Lie on your back for a moment. Keep both knees bent to begin with. Observe the length in the lumbar spine. And then draw the right leg in. Ekapada Pavana Mukhatasana, stretch out through the left leg. And then change sides. Left leg in. Right leg long. And then draw both legs in, shin bones straight down. Now put both feet flat on the floor, heels down and away from you to keep the low back long. Feel how even doing that helps draw the tailbone in, meaning the tailbone lifts and kind of points towards the ceiling, keeping more and more length in your lower back. And then just for like kind of a test, start to walk your legs out, keeping your low back down. The feet can go apart. flow the buttock towards the heels as you straighten the legs. And most people will feel there's a little lift in the low back. Work to maintain it as best you can. Bring the feet as close together as you can while maintaining. And inhale, take the arms up and overhead, keeping the side waist down. And then hug both legs in. Now we're going to take, for just a moment, Urdhva Prasarita Padmasana. So arms at your sides, grab onto the mat and kind of pull the mat wide and push it away from you a little bit to gain some traction as you take your legs straight up. Heels push up, so the buttock flows to the heels and the tailbone's in. Spread the mound of the foot. And just be there for a moment this way. Observe that the low back stays down and stays broad. In fact, even observe how it's sort of a conscious effort to surrender the abdomen back rather than allowing it to lift and puff up. And if you can do that and maintain that, let the, if you're on your cycle at this point, cross your legs and be in Swastikasana, and the arms can reach overhead if that's the case. Otherwise, be in Urdhva Prasarita Padmasana and take the arms overhead. So the Swastikasana goes for if you're on your cycle or if you have any kind of abdominal issues, hernial issues, that sort of thing. Surrender the abdomen further and more. Let it fall back as the low back broadens. And then again, hug the legs in. Now, if you're on your cycle or have any of those other issues that might be going on in the abdomen, you're to take Supta Padangusthasana 2 now with a bolster by your outer hip and a strap around your foot. So Supta Padangusthasana 2 is this. Most of you know that. Just have a bolster there to support your legs so the legs stay stable. Have a strap for your foot. And that's your work for the next little bit. I'll kind of tell you when we're halfway through and you'll go to the other side. The rest of you, we're doing a certain way to work with Urdhva Prasarita Padmasana. I personally think is a more gentle way to get into the pranic actions of the pose. And so here's what it's going to look like. We're going to do like, I don't know, 10 or 15 of these. You're going to take your hands behind your head, interlock your fingers. Watch me for a second. So my knees are staying bent in Dvipada Uttanasana. I'll lift my head and chest up. So my shoulders are off the ground. I'm not really trying to, get my shoulder blades off the ground, but my head and my shoulders are lifted. My gaze is kind of out there at an angle. It's an inhale, and then you're going to push up through your heels. So that gets this outer hip to roll away. Spread the mound of the foot so the back leg is broad. The tailbone should stay in. And the exhale is a lengthening of the legs forward and down to wherever you can go while keeping your back on the ground. I'm not going to say, it has to go to 30 or 60 or whatever. It's just a lengthen up and exhale, lower, pause, inhale, straighten and lengthen, lower, exhale. And like I said, we'll do like 10 or 15 of those. Okay? So it's just like a little preliminary Urdhva Prasarita Padmasana. So hug the legs in. Take the hands behind the head. And then lift the head and shoulders up a bit. Observe how that helps you take your upper abdomen back and down. So the whole abdominal region remains in the body. Then exhale, push up through your heels, spread the mound of the foot and lengthen the legs forward and down. Tailbone should still be in. Pause. Then bend the legs. Take a breath. And exhale, legs go up and lengthen and lower and pause. Keeping that low back down. Bend. So that's 2. Keep going on your own. Don't rush. But count on your own, and let's say 12. We'll split the difference, right? Do 12 of them or so. So if you have a hard time keeping your low back down, you just, you manage that by how low you take your legs. And then you've probably done about 12 or so. Hug the legs in, pull the shin bones straight down. Put the feet on the floor. Yep, just one more Ekapada Padmasana. Right leg in, stretch the left leg out to straight. So we're basically going to just do that again. If you're on your cycle, you can begin to come back to center and start to go to the other side. Change sides with your legs for Ekapada. Put both feet down, keep the waist down, and slowly stretch the legs out to straight for Supta Tadasana, keeping that low back way back. Arms overhead like Urdhva Hastasana. And then hug both legs in. So here we go. We're going to go again. Same thing, about 12 of them, okay? So I always, when I interlace my fingers behind my head, I try and interlace the other way. Lift the head and chest, take a breath, and exhale, legs straight and lengthen to lower. The upper body should stay quite stable. And frankly, it's always better to do less. If you're not sure if you're keeping your back down, just, lighten up on it a little bit so that the actions are complete. And that's probably about 12. So then hug the legs in again. Good. Roll onto your side. Take Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward dog. If you're on your cycle or any other things going on that prevent you from abdominals, you can come ahead into downward dog. And those of you particularly that were doing that abdominal work, feel how the buttock flesh flows to the heels. So there's a similar quality here in your downward dog. Walk the hands back to your feet for a soft Uttanasana. Keep the kneecaps lifted, but spread the back of the upper knees. Downward dog. Soft Uttanasana. Switch the crossing of your arms. Inhale and come on up. Now, those of you on your cycle, you're going to take Utthita Hasta Parsva Padangusthasana, meaning you can use a strap around your foot, but this is your pose now, okay? So you're going to be doing this while the rest of us are going to come back to sitting. Ooh, you need a blanket. And once you come to sitting, here's what we're going to do. You're going to roll the blanket up. You see where the fringes are? I'm going to roll this old blanket up, put it right here between my knees, and squeeze it. So my feet are a little wider than the blanket. My feet are not super close to me, as you can see. I reach my arms, and we're going to do some pulsing. So you're going to shift back, hugging that blanket, so the buttock is flowing towards the back of my knees. Got it? So squeeze the blanket right above your knees, reach out through your arms, and pulse. Exhale, pulse. Otherwise, you've got that leg up the wall. That's it, guys. Good. Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana 2. So you should do maybe, I don't know, let's say another 12 of these pulses. 12 is a magic number tonight for whatever reason. Don't go super fast. Use your exhale as you pulse back. The back should round. And you should feel that the lower abdomen is in. You should feel even in your upper abdominal area, this whole area should pull back towards the spine. I've completely lost count. So now then, go ahead and sit up, remove the blanket, Dandasana. Now, those of you that are with me here in the abdominals, I want you to apply that action. Here's what we're doing. Just watch for a second. As you build Pariporna, you apply that action that was happening in your pelvis. And then you apply that action, you flow the buttock to your heels, Ardha Navasana. Pariporna, Ardha. And you're going to work on going back and forth like that. Okay? We won't do a lot. Okay? So from there, from Dandasana, fingers behind you a bit, drag the heels in and hover your heels. So feel how you're already in that like kind of back position from the pulsing. Legs extend up, heels away, mounds of the foot away. So I really want you to feel how these things are all so related. Arms out wide, broad chest, breathe. Now inhale, and as you exhale, buttock flows to your heels, hands behind, Ardha. Inhale, work to come up, and Ardha. Inhale up and just keep going. Do about 5. And then once you come up again, whoop, cross your legs and Yogi Mudrasana and Swastikasana. Now, take a few breaths there and come up. Those of you doing the standing pose, change sides now. Those of you doing the abdominal work with me, we're doing exactly that again, okay? So it's not, don't think of these as separate things, but start to figure out how they're all related, and it has to do with the tailbone in and blah, 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 and all those things, right? So hug the blanket. Reach the arms, turn your palms open though. It just makes it less straining, right? And pulse. Do like 15. These are pretty simple, but I really want you to feel that warmth come into the abdomen, and the squeezing of the blanket can help you really get the sense that your tailbone's in. So use both those things. Then come up, ditch the blanket, Dandasana. Now apply that as you pull your heels into you and hover them. Extend out through the legs, mounds of the foot away. Paripurna. We're going to do about 5. Go on your own. Exhale, Ardha. Paripurna, Ardha. Work from the base of the spine. Then cross the legs the other way. Yogi Mudrasana in Swastikasana. And then come on up and take downward dog. Those of you at the wall, you can come on and take another downward dog as well, either in the middle of your mat or with your hands against the wall. Now, particularly those of you doing those abdominals, apply that to downward dog and observe how that's where your heels come down. Good, and then walk the hands back to the feet and come on up. Okay, those of you that were doing a Tita Hasta Padangusthasana to the side, the Parsva, you're going to go back to the wall now and you're doing facing the wall. Now, even though you're doing something different, it's related still. But if you've got abdominal stuff, I don't want to just work that area and work that area. So you're going to be more static and not as dynamic. But just because, you know, you're here, you still want to feel that, wow, that buttock flows to that heel. There should still be a lift from the base. All of those things, they still apply. Okay? You're doing that. The rest of us, for just a few moments, and then you're going to join us fairly quickly. The rest of us, watch. If you have been with me a while, and all of you have, you know I'm not a huge plank fan. But I'm not a huge plank fan because I don't think it's a good transition to go from downward dog to plank into chaturanga, because people tend to go straight down and collapse. That doesn't mean that plank is not a good way to work, especially to transition. So just watch. From downward dog, as I roll the buttock to my heels, we're going to come towards a plank. So to do that, I'm going to roll the buttock more and more to my heels as I pull my chest forward and then just go back. So it's like the back action happens from the hips, the forward action happens from the chest, so that you get really accustomed to that tailbone in. We're just going to do that 3-4 times, and then we're going to add in that the elbows bend so that you can start to find how that brings you into chaturanga. Okay, rather than just plank chaturanga, because that doesn't work with the shoulders. It's not pranic. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Downward dog. Flow the buttock towards the heels, and that will have to increase as you inhale and pull the chest forward towards plank. It's like the sternum wants to continue out beyond your mat. And then use the thighs back, the buttock down to take yourself back to plank. Use the side ribs flowing forward and the collarbones broad to come to plank. Use the thighs and the buttock to come to downward dog. I think I said plank before, sorry. So find what activity does what movement. Then, when you start to catch that, wow, the tailbone's still in, when you come forward to plank, give your elbows a little bend, pull the chest forward, and then straight away back to downward dog. Exhale towards chaturanga. Thighs up, heels back and down, downward dog. So again, it doesn't have to be the deepest plank in the world, but start to catch that pranic activity. That's it. A few more. The toe mounds spread against the ground to keep your thighs lifted and the back of the knees open. Good. Then downward dog. Everybody that was on the wall, change sides. So then again, those of you on the wall, remember, that the lift of the chest from inside, the side ribs crawling up so the collarbones are broad. It's the exact same pranic action that we're doing here, moving from downward dog to plank, okay? So those of you on the wall, you work there. The rest of you from downward dog, flow the buttock to the heel and roll the side ribs forward to plank. Exhale, thighs back, heels reaching down. Do about 5 or 6 and start to bend the elbows to give yourself that plank activity, thanks to the stability in the tailbone. Then, downward dog. And with your inhale, come on up to standing. Walk your hands back to your feet or your feet forward, your hands, it doesn't matter, come on up. Okay, so we're gonna come through that downward dog to chaturanga to the ground into shalabhasana. However, if you were just working with your leg up the wall, you just come and lie on the abdomen, okay? Otherwise, the rest of you, I want you to use that transition of chaturanga to bring yourself to the ground. Okay, everybody come on down to the ground, abdomen on the floor. Forehead down, walk your thighs back. Now, when you're there, everybody, hands under your shoulders, press the hands down and slightly forward. And as you do that, walk your front thighs back so it helps you catch the buttock flowing to your heels. Spread the toes against the ground and then take your hands behind you, roll the shoulders back and lift the chest. So a supported shalabhasana by interlocking your fingers behind. Roll the shoulders back, lift the hands up, press the top of the foot down. Imagine someone sitting on your heels to help you pull the frontal body forward and up. Breathe. And then lengthen forward, come down, change the hook of your fingers. And second side, come on up. And then come forward and down. Now, those of you that are doing alternative poses today, just rest, forehead on your hands. Those of you that are coming with me, tuck your toes under, hands under your shoulders. Take a breath, and with your exhale, you go to downward dog. If you can go through chaturanga to downward dog, you do that. If you need your knees down, that's fine. But heels back, hands forward, chaturanga to downward dog. So catch the flow from within so that the tailbone is in. Go through chaturanga and to the ground. Then once you've done that, again, hands push down and forward so the thighs walk back. Bring your forearms forward and pull with the forearms to roll the shoulders back. So everybody now do this with us. So use this beginning of Bhujangasana to get length in your frontal groins. Right? Feet can stay close, spread through the mounds of the foot, like the two big toes are like a snake tail, pulling straight back to catch the tailbone in. Roll the shoulders back. Now use your hands, pull with the hands to begin to lift the forearms, tailbone driving down, roll the frontal body up. Lengthen forward to come down. You can do that several times, and you can bring the hands closer if you wish. The story is, as the hands come closer, make sure your shoulders aren't bunching up. Shoulders roll back. So it's literally like you're trying to pull your chest forward of your arms. If the arms snap to straight, then you need to shorten your distance. Tailbone in, lengthen the frontal spine to lift the chest. Lengthen forward to come down. Do a couple more there on your own, playing around with the distance. Toes, big toes especially, pulling back so the tailbone is in. Then turn your toes under, go through chaturanga or straight into downward dog or rest if you're taking alternative poses. Now, last one, you're going to go through chaturanga into the ground. This time, turn your toes under, hug the elbows in. Now, everybody, hands by your side ribs. Flow the buttock to the heels so that when the top of the foot is down, tailbone's in. We're going to upward facing dog. So inhaling, come on up. Make the legs strong, lift through the inner arms. And then lengthen forward to come back down to the ground. So if you do that enough, you're going to go forward off your mat. So get on your mat. Again, hands by your side ribs, roll the shoulders back. And inhale, come on up, upward dog. Lengthen forward to come down. Last one here. Inhale, upward dog. Then go over your toes, downward dog. Now, if you're doing alternative poses, walk your hands to your feet for Uttanasana. Otherwise, chaturanga, upward dog, downward dog. So take a breath, chaturanga, go over the toes, upward dog. Go over the toes, downward dog. One more time, chaturanga, go over the toes, upward dog. Go over the toes, downward dog. And then walk your hands back to your feet as well. And everybody inhale and up you come. Get a chair out, have the chair facing you on one end of your mat. So we're taking Parsvottanasana. Front leg's going to come forward, so right leg forward first, hands on the seat of the chair. But of course the action is that back heel down. Now let's see. Before we get into this, let me explain why we're doing this and what I really want you to search for. And that is, when you come into this pose, you know, different people feel different stuff in these poses. It just depends on your body. You know, some people feel, oh, it's this big stretch and I have to go for that. Other people feel it's in their back or whatever. While all of that can be true simultaneously, chronically, what I want you to observe and what I want you to kind of evolve with is that as the back heel presses and the front big toe presses, that contains my outer hips, and it helps me to flow the buttock down so that not only is my tailbone in, of course I'm using the ball and socket joints, but I'm moving the facet joints in my spine, right? So the tailbone's in and it helps the abdomen pull back. Similar, you know, you could say that front leg and my torso are in like a Navasana shape-ish. But as that happens, and as you look for that strength in the outer legs and so forth, work on the crawling of the side ribs forward So the chest becomes broad, so that there's this constant evolution from deep inside, so close to the spine, that the spine is like a serpent pulling away from the pelvic basin, right? And the pelvic basin becomes more and more stable over time. It doesn't just let the spine go, right? So that's kind of why I want us in this sort of Parsvottanasana at the moment, okay? So take your hands on the seat of the chair, right foot under, left foot back. Connect to the stability of the legs. So mound of the right big toe in, so this outer right hip is in. Left heel down, so that outer left hip is in. But not only is the buttock down and tailbone in, but you'll feel those facet joints in the lower spine. Of course, it's not only a rounding, but now then, once you connect to that, breathe into the side ribs, and you can bend the arms so they turn out, right? Catch that sort of serpentine action along the spine that pulls the spine forward and makes the chest broad. And the more the legs are awakened and strong and stable, the more that action of the spine can increase and sort of become transformative from inside. Now you can just stay right there, just change the crossing of your legs. Right heel down, mound to the left big toe down, stabilize the legs. Keep the abdomen pulling back. Thanks to the action in the legs, not to the abdominal muscles. That just should be almost a reaction. Side ribs forward. So those two equal and opposite actions chronically in the spine. Now go back to the first side. And once you catch those actions, bring your forearms down. You know, I have to move the chair a tiny bit. Change sides. And you might find for you, when you bring the forearms down, the back may round quite a bit. That's okay. Just work with those actions from within. Now, come on up. Those of you taking alternative poses, you repeat that. You do straight legs with the arms straight, and then legs with the arms bent, right? The rest of you, we're going to turn your chair. I'm turning it so that the backrest is on my right. We're going to go from that Parsvottanasana action, catching all that same work, into a very stable Parivrita Trikonasana, so that you can take the actions from before and transform with Parivrita Trikonasana. So this side now should be able to work on that length so the chest can open. Okay, so Parivrita Trikonasana. Have the backrest at your right, right foot forward, come on in. Now, once you're in, left forearm down and across the chair, right hand on the backrest, catch the hips and the legs. So the buttock flesh flows down, but now use the right hand to press down on the backrest to turn you. Catch that serpentine pranic action across the frontal spine, across the left side body, that lengthens you and turns you. Breathe. And then release and inhale, come up. Okay, we're just going to switch the chairs so the backrest will be on your left. Left foot forward. So I'm not just having you go for full Parivrita Trikonasana, and we could. But the reason I'm not is I really want those pranic actions understood. Not just mentally, but physically. And dance with it a little. You'll notice one side might be different from the other. And then release and come out. Now it's a different support with the chair. Still we're using the chair. You'll move it over to your right so that the backrest and the back feet are facing you. And it's a little bit more of a familiar prop in this way. Those of you doing alternatives, do the same thing in Parsvottanasana again. The rest of you, we're doing Parivrita this way. So left hand at the back of the chair seat. And then finally to the back rung. So when you get that, right, catch the legs, tailbone in. Your right hand could come to the right waist and lengthen the frontal spine so that you can take the right arm up. Open the front armpit chest, right there beneath your collarbones. And then inhale, come on up. Change the chair to the other side. Left foot forward. Come on in. Maybe the hand can go to the bottom rung and you deepen that twist. Maybe the left hand can come to the waist, lengthen the frontal spine. Open the armpit chest. Find that is directly correlated to how you stand in your feet. And then as you're ready, inhale, come on up. Everybody come on up. We're going to keep that chair now. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit in the chair. Everyone does this. We can all do this together for now. So what you'll do, most of you know this, feet on the front legs. The back is against the backrest. You want those shoulder blades to just kind of catch the backrest, but you have to know that the upper arms have to be able to turn out. We'll be here for a few moments, getting this part of your chest to open. Then heels down, tailbone in, and you lie back. Legs have to work strong so that tailbone stays in. And we'll breathe here. So as you're ready, get ready. Okay. When you come up, the hands let go, heels down, tailbone lifts into the body. Lie yourself back and let the front chest be broad and open. Breathe wide into the side ribs and roll that breath there up beneath the collarbones. And then come on back down. Good. If the backrest is just too hard, put a blanket on it, but most of you are fine, I think. And do that just one more time. As you're ready, keep your heels on the front legs of the chair so it doesn't go anywhere. Good, everybody. And then go ahead and release and have a seat. So those of you doing the alternative poses today, you should now take regular chair back bend, and you can have a bolster for underneath your head, some height underneath your heels, tie a strap around your thighs if that feels good to you, okay? and just take regular chair back bend. The rest of you, watch. Here's how we're going to do this next thing. It's really very similar to what you just did, but let's see. But instead, you're going to lie your back over the seat of the chair. Watch me first, then we'll do together. Now, you can see where my head is. I'm going to dive my hands right straight underneath the backrest and hold the back rung of the chair. Then I walk my shoulders down. And I start to let the hips come down. Now, the same part of your shoulder blades are touching now the front seat of the chair. And I just control how much opening that is by how much I lower my hips. Okay? And then when we're done, we'll just have a seat. Okay? So the rest of you chair back bend. Those of you coming with me, come on with me. Yeah, I find it's almost easier just to come in from just on the ground, just lie back there. Right. Walk down a little bit. Still bones in, but then you lower the hips. Of course, the outer upper arm turns to the ceiling. Keep your neck relaxed and work at your capacity. But you'll find the more you do, the more the back will open a little bit and give you some space. Those of you in chair back bend, just be. That's it, Harmony. Walk a good deal because yeah, there you go. You got it. Good. So everybody doing that little, upper back opener there can just have a seat on the ground for a minute. One way to do that and feel really quite stable is to just put your hands on the backrest of the chair so you can see it. Just put your hands there and then just lower your hips down and you'll sit right down on the ground. Yeah. And just take a little break. So in that little break, and the rest of you, you're just doing chair back bend, just do chair back bend. In that little break, sit in swastikasana, put a hand up onto the chair and roll that shoulder back and twist. So as you twist, buttock down, but grow up from inside to build that turn. And then other side. And of course, remember the way in which your legs are crossed because we're going to do this again. So one more time. Lie back. Try and keep your hands wide on that rung. I always kind of hold the legs of the chair to keep my upper arms turning. I don't know about you, but I can always really feel I have one stiff shoulder. And this is something that helps it more than most things. And then to come out, just hold the backrest and just set your hips down. Cross the legs the other way and twist to the right. Those of you in chair back bend, you can go ahead and come up. And if you want to do a little twist to the right and a twist to the left, just go ahead. Right, just to release that back bend and then twist to the left, everyone. Okay. With all of that in mind, this area quite broad, right, and lifted through the inner parts of the body, the buttock flowing to the heels. Now, we are going to take handstand. Those of you who are doing alternative work, Your thing here now is Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. The way I'd want you to do that is like I'm showing now. And that is shoulders on a bolster, a brick for your tailbone, with your shoulders lifted this much. Usually a brick on tall is just fine, right? And so then, arms to the sides. You don't want your elbows over your shoulders, but it can be a pretty, there we go, a pretty restful pose. And all this just gets to open. And the tailbone stays in. Just a reminder, those of you coming into handstand, if you make it up, great. If you don't worry. But it's the actions of doing it. It's catching all these things that we're talking about from the previous poses that end up lifting you into handstand. So, doesn't mean you can't get into handstand without these things, but it also means if you can come into handstand with the embodiment of the pranic energy flowing down, tailbone in, front chest broad, things just become easier and more fluid. So you'd come from downward dog, shoulders over your wrist, and it's this stage. You see my lower back? Incorrect. Instead, flow, lift, in order to get that kick. You understand? So your low back has to be long. Come on, handstand. And if you don't make it up, don't worry. But work on that beginning action, buttock towards your heels, tiptoe in with your feet, and lift one leg. Keep flowing the buttock to the heels so the tailbone's in, and just give a little hop. And exhale, hop. Keeping the low back long, and you can always just switch sides and hop. Oh, and maybe you'll just bring yourself right on in there. So after you've hopped a little, pause and hold your elbows. Take a little rest. And then again, and you can, if you want, you can tie a strap around your arms just above your elbows. But you all, at this point, from those other poses you've been doing, like downward dog and upward dog, you have the arm strength. But sometimes when you put something around the upper arms, it can just give you a little more confidence more than anything, and some staying power. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. But you don't want to do it forever. I kind of remember the day my teacher made me stop doing it. I was very reluctant. But it's good to use when you need it. And then come on down and hold your elbows. Those of you in Setu Bandha, bend your knees and lift your hips and come on out. Those of you who are doing alternative poses, here's your next bit. That is this. You are going to do Upavishta Konasana, buttock flowing to your heels and spreading the mounds of the foot. Best if you have a bolster or a bolster and some blankets. And you're going to come forward and rest. The rest of you are coming with me into Gomukhasana. So full pose Gomukhasana. So that means, sorry to turn my back, but you'll see. You're going to set up with your left knee behind your right knee. Both sets of my feet point straight back. And it's nice here to have a blanket to place on top of the heel that you're going to sit on, which is your left heel. That left heel comes right at the center. It's like your tailbone's trying to reach down to it. We have a seat here and then we'll go in together into Gomukhasana. So go on and have that seat. Okay. Use the blanket because it will give you some stability and some ways to find length. So once you're seated, that's it. Bring the hands to the front knee. Feel that both outer groins descend down and the buttock descends, so that the low back is long and the abdomen pulls back. Good. Now your right leg is the leg on top, I think. Yes, your right leg should be the leg on top, and that'll be the arm that goes behind. Gomukhasana arms. Left arm up and over. Now the interesting thing is oftentimes when we get here, many people hang out in their lower back, meaning the lower back goes way in. No, those outer groins should descend, the buttock should descend, so that very much like Parsvottanasana or Parivrita Trikonasana, this lower pelvic basin is contained. And then from inside, you're crawling up the frontal spine to lift the chest. Allowing the lower back to be really long so that the upper back can move in to lift the chest. Thoracic spine moving in. Let's change sides. So release that. Just come forward and change the legs. Okay. So the foot that's on top, you want to keep it as tightly in as you can. Descend the buttock. So again, I've been saying quite a bit lately, roll the buttock towards the back of the knees. That action applies. Okay. Then left leg's on top, so left arm's on bottom. And breathe. All right, those of you in Upavishta, come on up. Take Janu Shirshasana on the first side. Now, those of you with me in full Gomukhasana, release. Come forward, go back to the first side. Nothing's changed, exactly the same. But get that balance of the buttock fleshed down. This pose always kind of weirdly, I don't know why, reminds me of riding a bike. If any of you have ever ridden a bike, maybe when you were a kid, I don't know, but when you ride a bike and you let go of the handlebars and you just sit up and you ride it without holding onto the handles, it would probably be the same as a unicycle. But your pelvis has to work in a certain way. The buttock has to descend in order to keep your balance when you're doing that. It's the same action. It's the same action in the pelvis here. Neck relaxed, shoulders relaxed. Change sides. All right, top leg is the bottom arm. I've heard that described before on a bike, that you steer with your sit bones. It's really kind of true. Good. Other side Janu Shirshasana if you guys haven't changed sides yet. Now, yeah, that's what I thought. Now, those of you that are going with me into the full pose, set up please for shoulder stand with your head facing the wall. Your head, your shoulders should set up so that your shoulders are a knee's distance away from the wall, right? So you put your feet against the wall like that. You set your blankets up at this stage so that your head's going to face the wall. Now, those of you doing Janu Shirshasana, you know, try and be on this side to equal length as you were on the other side. But then when you're ready, you're going to come up and take Paschimottanasana. Again, with head rest. And you'll be there while we're in this shoulder stand, which won't be terribly long. Now, those of you coming into this shoulder stand with me, it's really basic. It's nice to pull back sometime and do some of these basic versions of poses. Watch for 2 moments and then you're going to go up into the pose. But you set up, like you guys know, upper arms turn out, but palms down. Now I'm going to take my toes to the wall. Toes to the wall, hands to my back, turn the upper arms out, and we're here, pushing the heels up, 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 up. You see the buttock flesh follows. I hope you see that. And then I spread the mounds of the foot, walking the hands up higher and higher as you go. Putting the hands on the back on flesh is a better way to work. We'll be there a little bit, then we'll take the feet off the wall. Okay? Come on in. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As you're ready, take a breath, and with an exhale, kick the legs up the wall, put your hands on your back, and walk your hands up the back. Flow the flesh of the buttock to the heels. Take your feet a little apart, about hips distance, so you get that rolling of the buttock further and more towards your heels. Maintain the flow of the buttock, but spread the mounds of the foot against the wall. Observe how your chest, over time, lifts towards your chin. It's not that you're trying to pull your chin to your chest. It's the other way around. Now, keeping the buttock lifted, float one leg off the wall so that the mound of that big toe pulls straight up. And then the other leg can join. You want to feel that you keep the buttock lifted just as much as before. Bring the weight into the shoulders and the upper arms. Then feet back to the wall. Walk your hands up your back a little more. Roll the buttock to the heels. Keep the tailbone in, and then the other leg leaves the wall. Big toe mound reaches up, so the leg turns from outside in. And then bring the other foot to join. Lengthen up. Observe how you can work to open the front groin here. Then toes back to the wall. Bend the knees for Karna Padmasana. The arms can wrap around the legs. Those of you in Paschimottanasana, gently come on back up and have a seat. And then those of you in shoulder stand, gently roll back down and out. You can slide off the back of your blanket so your shoulders can get a little space for a moment. And then you'll come on up. Now, those of you that were just in Paschimottanasana will set up for Supta Baddha Konasana. The rest of you have a seat on the front of your bolster. Feet forward for Marichasana 3. So hook the left elbow over the right knee and turn. Marichasana 3. Mound to the left big toe, pressing away. Lift, lengthen, turn. And then exhale back to center and change sides. Go to your left. Crawl up through the side ribs. And release to center. Go back to the first side. Work to hook that outer left armpit against your outer right knee. You can use your right hand to grab the abdomen and turn it to the right, and then lift the chest and turn. Exhale, release to center, go to the second side. So the left hand can turn the abdomen, hook the outer right armpit against that outer left knee, lift and turn. And then release back to center. Let's just do one more thing to release the back. Stay with your bolster, sweep your legs to your left for Bharadvajasana. Just one time, Bharadvajasana. Turn to the right, lift the chest. Get those thick back left ribs to really move for you. And then back to center and go to the other side. Turn to your left. And then back to center. So the chair shoulder stand I'm asking you to do today is the kind where the legs reach back over the backrest, meaning it's sort of a sense of Satyabandha Sarvangasana in shoulder stand. We're not going to be there long. You are going to bring your legs into Baddha Konasana, so there's a sort of a Supta Baddha Konasana action that you'll find as well. Right? It's important that you have height under your hips. So you want to have a couple blankets there. For most of you, at least like a blanket, if not 2, or maybe a blanket and a half. Like that. I like 2. Some of you might like 1.5. You got to figure out what's right for you. Okay. And yep. And so the pose itself, so now I've taken you away from the wall in this pose. You've all done this pose against the wall plenty. So being away from the wall, it will look like this. You all know how to come in at this point. Shoulders on, arms behind, shoulders, and you get that front armpit chest to really open. But then instead of the legs straight up, the legs reach away. So the butt egg to the heels, tailbone in. Chest should stay lifted and buoyant thanks to the actions in the legs. So come on in. We're not going to be here long. We will bring the legs into Baddha Konasana in a few moments. But the low back should feel long and the tailbone should feel deep, so there's no pain there. Instead, It helps drive that thoracic spine in and open the front chest. Breathe into the sides of the body. Keep the neck soft. Observe how the chest lifts towards the chin here. And then let's bring the legs into Baddha Konasana. Relax the mouth, the jaw, and the tongue. Soften the temples and the space behind the eyes. Now, there's no rush at all. This goes for those of you in Supta Baddha Konasana as well. You can either stay in Supta Baddha, or you can just gently, easily transition now into Shavasana. And those of you here in this Satubandha, you can transition onto the ground so that your back is on the floor and the legs rest on the chair. There's no hurry. We didn't take a very long time up here, not nearly as long as what I would like, but we're just running out of time. But if you'd like to stay in this position for a little bit, that's fine. Otherwise, you begin to make that transition so that the legs are supported by the bolster and the back of the knees and calves are supported by the chair. I should say your back is supported by the bolster. Let the eyes close and surrender there completely and entirely. Long, smooth, complete exhales. And then bring the hands to rest on the frontal body for a moment. Reconnect. If you have that bolster under your hips, lift the hips and just push the bolster towards the chair and bring your hips to the ground. And everybody bend your knees and roll yourself onto the right. Use the hands to press the floor away and come on up. Namaskar.